Ned Kelly, you see. Look, he's had a bit of a bad run, I've got to admit. He's had things go against him, but otherwise I think he's a fine fella. And I'm all for Ned and his family. The Kelly family, they're all right by me. G'day. This week, 2023, taking you on a little trip going from Sydney to Melbourne, all accommodation free, based on the fact you've got your own tent, camper trailer, caravan, or whatever accommodation to take with you. On all of these though, you do have to be completely self-sufficient. That's your own toilet, your own water system, and your own method of getting rid of your rubbish. Anywho, so the places I went to, from Sydney I went to Berrima, which is in the Southern Highlands, beautiful. Southern Highlands, then I went to Yass and stayed by the river. That was fantastic. Stayed there a couple of nights, and then went from Yass to Glenrowan. Wanted to check out the Ned Kelly thing. I probably went a little bit overboard on the Ned Kelly, but anywho, you can check that out. And then from Glenrowan to Broadbean or Broad something, name at the bottom, and from there all the way down to Melbourne. And no cost on accommodation. How good's that? Anywho, let's go. Good morning, top of the morning to you. I've left Sydney and I'm headed towards Melbourne, so I've left New South Wales and headed towards Victoria. It's called into a little town called Berrima, a delightful little town, very, well, it's called the part of the Highlands, and the Highlands, the old Scottish thing. Yeah, lovely little place and massive drop in temperature. It's New Year's Eve, and New Year's Eve you'd think the weather would be pretty good. Anywho, let's just go explore it. Just wanted to pop in a little ad. If you're enjoying this video and you haven't already subscribed, now might be a great opportunity. That'll help me a lot. Top of the morning to you. Not too much of a prize for guessing where I am. I'm in Gundagai, and that there is the dog on the tucker box. And the story behind that is basically back in the day in the 1830s, there was, in the bullock trains, what would happen was sometimes the bullocks would get stuck in the mud. And when that happened, the bullocky, the guy, you know, leading and controlling the bullock team, would go and get help. So what would happen was the dog would stay and then sit on this tucker box. Tucker box is food for his day. Dog would sit on the tucker box and guard the tucker box. So that's basically where the theory came from. And then there was a couple of guys that wrote poems. One guy wrote the original in 1838, and then they modified that in the 1930s. So it depends which one you want to look at, but they're both interesting. And that's all about the road to Gundagai and the dog on the tucker box. Okay, this is one of the tourist spots, really well organised. So what they do is they put little markers. This is number 1, across the road is number 2. So number 1 was the side of the Glenrowan Inn, which was owned and managed by Anne Jones. And what happened was when all the drama was about to happen, there was a whole lot of people in here. Meanwhile, what they'd done is Ned and the boys had organised to derail the train where all the police were coming up from Melbourne. There was a lot of police. Turns out things all went horribly wrong, and it wasn't derailed, or the police managed to find another way through. But meanwhile, while they were all waiting for the police to come up, because Ned knew the police were coming, he was in the pub there doing a bit of a jig and playing and singing, and he was actually playing hop, skip and a jump. So he was pretty casual about it. And then when all the drama sort of got closer and closer, then Ned and his brothers put on the gear, and then everybody in the pub realised this was going to be pretty serious. So across the road is, as I said, that's the position 2. That's where all the police were lined up, all the shenanigans went. So I'm going over now to spot 3, and that's where the actual siege was, and that was sort of near the end. So it was exactly here that Ben Kelly was shot and badly injured. And the guy that shot him was Sergeant Steele, allegedly, but other guys have got their theories and said, oh, it was me, oh, it was me. Anyway, point is he was shot. Yeah, just where this little kind of plaque is, if you come to it, it's number 4, and this is where, you know, the gun battle was from over there. Bang, 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 and he managed to get a fair few shots off. But then I'll show you a photo now, which you see on the screen. That's from a postcard around about 1914. That was suggesting, you'll see him there still shooting. His arm is behind him, and he's shooting with his right arm. Remember, he's left-handed. I want you to get this image. Ned's already been shot at, and his arm, in fact, wasn't shot off. It was just shattered from bullets. Now, he found it obviously very hard to reload his gun. Apart from that, he's left-handed, don't forget, so he's trying to shoot with his right hand. Meanwhile, they're shooting their bullets at his armour and his helmet, and the faceplate, because they had no padding, was just smashing into his face each time they would shoot. So all under here was all caked in blood. He managed to hobble past the inn, climb up on, mount his old grey mare horse, and then what he was going to do was go back and attempt to save the other guys that were being shot at, the rest of the Kelly gang. But then, yeah, it all went pear-shaped, and you know the rest. They caught him. The flies are back. Okay, this little railway station is a replica of what it would have been like on the day. Now, what was happening was there was a special train coming up, stacked with loads of police. They were on their way up to investigate a murder in Beechworth. So yeah, lots and lots of police on their way up, and they had reporters with them. So the reporters were pretty keen to go up and do their little scoop on the Beechworth murder. However, Ned found out that they were coming up, so he attempted to derail the train. And in doing that, he didn't have so much luck. So then he called on, there was a handful of guys that were laying gravel, and he asked them to give him a hand, and they said no. So he took them and he put them as hostages in the pub I just talked about. Then he asked another couple of guys who then actually gave him a hand, and they set it all up. However, there was 2 trains coming up, and one of the trains had a drama, but the second train got through, and then that's when all the police arrived and so on and so forth. This is where, once they'd shot Ned, he lost his arm. They brought him over here, and they thought he was going to die. They brought him over here, took off all his armour, put him in here and patched him up, then put him on a train going back to Melbourne and put him in the Melbourne jail. Poor old Ned. This homestead here is a replica of the pre-1880 homestead of the Kelly family, and apparently it's really quite accurate. And inside there's some old artefacts that are actually from the Kelly family that have been handed down from relatives and friends, and well, I'll let you check it out. It's pretty good. Okay, I'm in Ned Kelly's museum, and this is a replica of the outfit that he wore. The 4 brothers, or the 4 involved, him and the other guys, they all had exactly the same coverings, and these are made out of plough moulds, weigh 45 kilograms, which is obviously they wouldn't be running too far, but you can feel them. They're Pretty solid steel. Amazing. Here's a random tip. So travelling in and around Sydney, in and around Melbourne, obviously you'll be caught up with toll charges. It might be a consideration. In Sydney certainly you can save around about, or up to about $35 taking your car and your caravan over things like Sydney Harbour Bridge and out on the Lane Cove Tunnel. You mix all those up, it can be fairly costly. And in Melbourne I couldn't really get the prices, but again, yeah, you have convenience, but you also have a cost. So if you wanted just to kind of skimp and save a little bit, you might want to go into Google Maps, click it where it says avoid tolls, and then go that path. For instance, when I was coming into Melbourne, I clicked avoid tolls, and I know for sure from where I was coming in from Seymour to my destination in Melbourne, that was going to be 1 hour 25 minutes with the tolls, and it was 1 hour 35 minutes without tolls. Also, just be aware, if you're not going on the tollways, you might have to do some small streets in the suburbs getting through, so that might be worth a thought as well. Well, there you have it, a trip from Sydney down to Melbourne, all free accommodation. I thought that would be a handy one for some people. Now some people might just want to be driving down to Melbourne and just get on with it. And if that's the case, then cut out some of those places I stayed, and obviously don't make that little diversion to the Ned Kelly thing. Apologies if I slightly overdid the Ned Kelly thing, but I was pretty excited. Anywho, if you found the video helpful, useful and or entertaining, that'd be great for giving a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, now's the opportunity. And if you think the video is worth sharing, that would be fantastic. Until next time, this is Paul Wheel Drive, signing off.